There are three women I meet over and over again in my soul alignment coaching business. Let's call them the stepping stone squatter, the muted CEO, and the signal lost founder. The stepping stone squatter has built something that works. It pays, it's stable, and she's still standing on something that was supposed to just be a stepping stone long after it stopped being somewhere where she actually belongs. She's supposed to be moving to a higher level, the next iteration of her business, of her soul calling, the next stone, but she's sort of stuck on this one. The second one is the muted CEO. That's the one whose nervous system patterns are muting her and her business. And then the third one, the signal lost founder, has read every strategy. She's followed every expert. And somewhere among all of that noise, she stopped being able to hear what her own business actually needs. They're all stuck at the same threshold. It's just three different ways of standing there. And in the next half an hour or so, I want to take you through all three. And you'll know which one, or maybe more than one, is yours and why it sort of held you at that threshold for longer than was necessary. And I'll also give you one thing you can do about it this week. So let's go. Happy Women's Day. My name is Melanie Brits, and welcome to a different kind of conversation. The first thing I want to do is just to make a type of distinction. And this is your business might just be work. It doesn't necessarily need to be a soul calling. When your business is just work, it is a transaction. It is a strategy. It's something you build and optimize and manage, but it's mostly about making a living. It's not an identity thing. But when it is part of a soul calling, part of your life purpose, then there's something deeper that's going on with what your business is. And you might not be able to particularly articulate it, but it's something you feel deep inside. And you can't quite put it down. So if that's you, then this conversation is for you. And if your business is just the work, then by all means go and build your next funnel, and I'll see you around. So let's start with pattern one, the stepping stone squatter. Now, a stepping stone is meant to carry you forward and not become the ground that you build or get stuck on. And I've seen so many founders of businesses that actually get stuck on what is supposed to just be a foothold. And sometimes people stay because of fear or because of safety. And that safety is often linked to the fact that the next step might look unknown or feel unsafe. And the old stepping stone, the part of your business that you started with but sort of has outgrown, that is not necessarily particularly aligned with the direction you're meant to be going in, might be providing financial security. It might be a big part of your cash flow. And so we all have these old projects or old services that we used to offer, old courses that we created, old books that we wrote and published, old ways of serving people that used to bring in money for us. And what is happening with the stepping stone squatter is that those things that we did or created or used to provide for our clients might not be the end all and be all of your business. And it is often something that is not really fulfilling you anymore, but it might be providing some sort of comfort or stability or safety in terms of you know how things work, you know how to do it. And so it becomes this sort of zone of competence. It's something that you can actually do quite well and you can get paid for doing it. But it's not your zone of genius. It's not your zone of excellence. But stepping into that zone of genius or zone of excellence feels very scary, often because you can't see the next thing quite clearly unless you start taking that step and moving over the water, which feels dangerous to your nervous system, which feels dangerous to your stability, your center of gravity, all of those things. And if you can't create the space and the vacuum, then the old stepping stone and the way that you're so fully anchored there can actually keep you stuck and keep you from seeing in clear terms what the next step is supposed to be. And so you'll be stuck at that threshold, knowing that there is something that is meant to be happening. There's something greater, there's something more, but somehow it is just not that clear. It doesn't feel that safe to your nervous system. It doesn't feel like there's no risk involved because it is literally stepping into the unknown. And so there might be parts of your business where you are being a stepping stone squatter. Outdated courses, outdated products, outdated ways of serving clients, and maybe the whole thing needs to be reworked in order to actually get closer in terms of alignment with what your sole purpose is, with what your genius is, with what lights you up inside that you're doing. And so it's worth going and taking a look at your business and the aspects of it and looking at what is there and how aligned is it? How much does it give you that soul deep satisfaction? Is it something that you started with when you first built your business, but now it's you've sort of outgrown it, but you haven't yet had the courage to actually drop it? Sometimes it's even because you've put in such a lot of work into that thing. There might be other people involved in actually helping you create that thing. And so there's all sorts of reasons why we can become a stepping stone squatter, but it is actually keeping you back from stepping into that bigger purpose, from getting to the next stone and realizing what that one is all about, because you're still stuck on this one. The mistake of the stepping stone squatter is confusing things that are still working or that are paying the bills with still belonging in your business. The stone holds you not because it fits, but because it feels safer than taking that step and crossing. And the reality of it is that some parts of your business was meant to teach you skills or give you specific experience or confidence. And if you don't move forward and you don't release that product, that service, that course, then it becomes something that is actually holding you back from moving forward. And so the action step I can give you this week, if you recognize yourself within this type of founder, is to name one stepping stone in your business. Write down the lessons, what it taught you, and then begin noticing gently that it might be time to move on. The muted CEO is someone that you might recognize and that I often recognize in myself as well. What the muted CEO doesn't realize is that when you start your business, specifically if it is just you initially, the energy blueprint of you, your energy blocks, your limiting beliefs, your self-sabotage patterns, all of that get baked into the energy blueprint of your business. Because in a sense, when it is a soul calling business, not just business as work, but a soul call business, that you are the business in a very real way. And so all of those patterns and all of those habits and all of those limitations and subconscious nervous system programming actually gets baked into the business cake. And often people don't realize it. And it's one of the biggest issues that I see that people don't recognize when they are starting their own business, is knowing that it is going to ask of you looking at all of your stuff very critically, very deeply, and growing all of the time, because your current limitations will become your business limitations in a very real way. And so if you want the growth, if you want to reach the next level, if you want to reach that level of purpose and service that you are feeling called to do, the impact that you're here to make, then that's going to require constant looking at that stuff and then releasing, growing, and pushing your own boundaries. And so the muted CEO doesn't lack the vision. She normally knows what she needs to do, but she is muting herself. And it's usually permission to be vulnerable, permission to delegate, permission to be visible. It's about her own safety and permission to just get to that next level. There's reasons why that is happening. Here are 3 of the biggest patterns that I see of the muted CEO. Number 1 is people pleasing. Somewhere you might have learned that love or acceptance is dependent on you being agreeable, being nice, being pleasant, going along with the flow, not making waves, not being assertive, not putting your own needs first. And what this causes in your relationships, but also in your business, are actually boundary problems where your clients will push against your boundaries and you will not uphold them properly. You might shape your offers around what you think a client wants or can afford, rather than what you are being called to put out, or the way that you are being called to put that out there, and also what you're asking for that. And it sometimes even leads to discounting your work before anybody's even asked you to discount it. Whenever you get pushback, you actually capitulate and you don't assert your own values, own worth, own opinion. The next one that I often also see is hyper independence. And this is about not really trusting anybody but yourself. And what it causes is you become the bottleneck of your own business, because your hours and your amount of energy and your attention actually then becomes the growth ceiling of your business. You can't scale your business without other people's hands being involved in that process. And if you're micromanaging or trying to control that all of the time and not delegating the responsibility properly, you are actually becoming your own biggest limiting factor. The other one that is also very common is the self-worth doubt. It's that sort of imposter syndrome that we talk about, where you feel, but who am I to actually be sharing this or teaching this or creating this? A lot of second guessing yourself, and it's about looking for external validation from other people or their approval. And having that external locus of success and your self-worth, this also leads to a lot of issues around your pricing and pricing your products and services at a level that is actually a proper and fair energy exchange. I had somebody the other day that told me that she has this limiting belief that's stopping her from taking the next step in terms of her business. And it's actually, what would her ex-husband be thinking of what she's doing? And he obviously is her ex-husband for a reason. And his opinion of her is obviously quite limiting and negative. And so she's allowing that thought of what would he say, what would he think, to stop her, the fear of the judgment. And my advice to her was to take that invisible council of people that you equate to people in your mind, which we usually populate with our worst critics and the people that have hurt us the most, that we are sort of, when we think of what would people say, those are the people that sort of come to mind, and to fire them and assign a new council. and actually replace them with the people that are your greatest cheerleaders, your biggest fans, the people that are always there for you, that always support and believe in you even more than you believe in yourself. And if you start doing that, then that actually helps you move forward when you are not that focused on trying to avoid the judgment, but actually stepping into the approval. However, what you really want to do is to get to a point where your own internal approval and self-worth is so high that it doesn't really matter what other people are saying or thinking, because you're being true to your own calling, you're being true to your own wisdom, your own knowledge, your own information that you're getting, and your own intuition. The problems that is caused in your business by this muted CEO reality aren't strategy problems. Getting a better sales page won't fix them, and getting a pricing formula also won't help. The business is built by the same nervous system that grew up somewhere, that learned what was safe, that decided what was allowed. And the most common mistake with this is treating the symptom as the problem. So you decide that you are charging too low, that your prices are actually too low. And then you raise your prices without investigating why that feels so uncomfortable to you. And what that leads to is you'll get pushback in terms of your prices, and you'll get self-doubt, and it will lead to this whole spiral of doubting yourself and doubting your own worth. So how do we start fixing this? The first thing is noticing where the pattern is showing up, whether it is people pleasing or whether it is all this chronic self-doubt. It might be hyper independence. It might be a big fear of visibility. That's a big one in the spiritual community as well. And there's often past life links to that. But when you notice the pattern, a helpful question you can ask yourself is, what am I actually protecting myself from right now? You don't have to change anything yet, but noticing is always the first step of a shift. And the biggest thing to take away from this is realizing that you have to confront your nervous system patterns, limiting beliefs, energy blocks, all of that stuff, because those have translated directly to whatever the biggest blocks in your business currently is. And so any work that you can do around that is always going to be beneficial in terms of your business. Pattern 3 is the signal lost founder. And sometimes exhaustion isn't a sign that you're doing too much. Sometimes it's a sign that you're listening to too many voices that were never really yours to follow. Now, the signal lost founder is overwhelmed by noise, and she's constantly building from other people's playbooks. The business is working, but there's something essential that's gone quiet. She's lost the thread back to her own signal. And this is actually more deadly for people with specific types of energy blueprints than others, but it is a problem for basically everybody. It's just that it has more severe consequences depending on what your energy blueprint is. There are energy blueprints out there that whenever you step out of alignment and you follow somebody else's recipe, it actually disconnects your flow. It disconnects your manifestation thing. And so even if you follow somebody else's recipe that has built them the franchise that's worth millions, it's never going to work for you, and it will have negative effects on in terms of how it plays out for you, precisely because you're not honoring your own channel. And if that is something that is linked to what you're here to be doing with this life of yours, stepping into your own power, learning how to act in integrity with your own very powerful channel. Whenever you subjugate or pass on that authority to somebody else, you're stepping out of alignment with yourself. And that will definitely not have the same results that you are hoping for by doing that. So for some people, that is actually a soul lesson. That's why I say for some people that will actually have quite a deadly effect. But for everybody, this is a problematic pattern, because if it's a soul calling business, then that means that it is meant to be run by your intuition and your intuition only. It's not wrong to necessarily take knowledge and gather it, but in the end, you are the arbiter and you are the person that actually uses your intuition to discern what of this many things is actually going to be helpful to me. The biggest mistake of the signal lost founder is adding more input to solve the overwhelm. More podcasts, more courses, more advice. What is needed is actually less noise, not more. Your intuition hasn't left you. It's just been drowned out by all of the other voices that you are surrounding yourself with and reaching out and putting in your ear. You don't need to find a new signal. You just need to clear all the static away. And so the action that I recommend, if you identify with this, is to take an hour this week with no input at all. Just put away the phone, put away all the stuff, and sit with your business, the spirit of your business, and ask it, what does it actually need right now? And then trust the simple answer that comes to you. Most women will see themselves in more than one of these patterns. And that's perfectly fine, because they are mirrors. They're not boxes that have neat edges and you can only belong or tick the box for one. You might have felt the pull of the stepping stone, the comfort of something familiar but that has quietly stopped fitting, or the silence and doubts and attempts at control of the muted CEO. Or you might have identified with the confusion and overwhelm of the hustle culture and all of the stuff that keeps bombarding us, that is the signal lost founder. Or you might have identified or recognized yourself in all three. But start with the pattern that felt most true, that felt most prevalent, that felt most active. That's your thread that you can follow gently. Without pressure, you don't need to have it all figured out just now. Every so often, working through one of these three on your own only gets you partway. Sometimes a business calling asks for more space than a Tuesday afternoon and a journal can hold. And that's what this Aligned Business Reset Retreat that I'm hosting in October is for. It's 4 days at Titanic View in Clarence. It's away from the noise, away from your to-do list, in a landscape that has a way of putting distance between you and urgency. 4 days is enough for something real to settle, not just be discussed. And it's kept small very purposefully for women to create space for the kind of conversation that doesn't happen in a group of 40. Time for whatever needs releasing, clarifying, or hearing to actually get the room that it needs. It's time to reconnect to your signal, to evaluate your whole business from the perspective of what has been muting it, and to see that next stepping stone that the next level is calling for. The investment is $18,000 per person, and if any part of what you heard today feels like I was describing you a little bit too accurately, it might be worth a closer look. If it's not the season for it, that's completely fine too. This is here if it supports you. I want to add that there's no wrongness in these patterns. Building something that truly matters simply asks more of you, and you are rising to meet it. The patterns themselves are not failures. They're the honest terrain of women who care deeply about what they're building and who they're becoming in the process. So you're not wrong, you're just becoming. And if something landed for you today, honor it. Reach out, rest in it, simply let it walk beside you. Happy Women's Day to your growth, your voice, and the beautiful calling that you are following right now. If you have any questions, reflections, or a quiet message about the retreat, I'd love to hear from you. You're not too much. You are exactly enough, and I hope that you realize it this Women's Day.